And I'll be very honest with you, if I was doing that again, I would probably do it differently. So probably I would start when I was still employed. Welcome to From a Woman to a Leader, the podcast for ambitious leaders in tech who are ready to grow their confidence, influence, and leadership without burning out or pretending to be someone they're not. I'm your host, Limor Bergman. This week I talked to Virginia Frischkorn about starting her businesses, and it inspired me to create this solo episode for any woman that wants to start something new, whether you want to start a business or a new job or a new career. And I'm going to share some things that I learned through my career. So stick around. And the big change in my career happened 6 years ago. And we decided to go back to Israel after spending 9 years in the US. And back then I was employed. I was a director of engineering. And for several years, I had this thing in my head that I wanted to start a business, that I wanted to do something else, but I was too afraid of doing that because it was comfortable. I had a high-paying job, and I just stayed and did what I did. And this move back to Israel kind of was the trigger for me to do something different. And I decided back then that I have to leave my job anyway, and we're making a big change. We're moving back. My kids have to adjust. Basically, they were not born in the US, but they were raised in the US. So it was a big shift for them as well. And I decided, well, that's the perfect timing to make also a career change, because if I just continue with my career as it was until now and get a job, I would never have the courage to leave. And I'll be very honest with you, if I was doing that again, I would probably do it differently. So probably I would start when I was still employed. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I think, probably a lot of you are in the same position I was at, thinking about starting something different, but maybe terrified of leaving the safety net of your paycheck. And that's perfectly normal. When I talked to Virginia Frischkorn, who started her company at the age of 24, she had no plan. She just did it. And I really loved the conversation with her. But, then I thought about it, and I realized that she came from growing in an entrepreneurial family. And my starting point was completely different. And yours may be too. I grew up in a middle-class family. Both my parents worked as an employee their entire careers. Actually, each one of them worked the entire career for the same employer. And, I remember growing up knowing that, being a business owner is risky, is dangerous even. Being an employee is safe. My parents were even anxious about switching jobs. So every time me or one of my siblings switch a job, they felt, oh, why are you switching a job? Maybe it's best to stay with what you know than go to what you don't know. And I thought, and I thought for years that breaking free from employee to business owner was something I needed to do. I wanted to do, but I was terrified because my childhood feelings stopped me. It felt unsafe and obviously unknown. And when when we went back to Israel and I started my business, I'll be completely honest with you, I had no clue what I was doing. I knew that I wanted to do something related to supporting other women in tech, because that's my passion, but I didn't know what exactly it meant in terms of a business. So what I did is just leaned on my connections and I started consulting because that was kind of convenient. And eventually, it was good to start with, but it felt more like a part-time job than actually owning a business. And eventually that contract, that kind of engagement ended, and I had to kind of dive into, having my own business. And, I talked to Virginia about it, about being information junkie. Like, the thing is that when you start a business, when I started a business, I had to wear a lot of hats and still do. Like, I had to be my own marketer, salesperson, business developer, basically everything. And obviously, because I was an employee my entire career, there are a lot of things I didn't know. So I started learning. I started following influencers. I started consuming a lot of content, free but also paid. Started kind of, get on a lot of mailing lists and buying a lot of courses and buying a lot of books, which is a good thing. But the problem was that there was a repeating pattern that was holding you back. The pattern was, if I only buy this course, I will learn everything I need, and then I can just have a thriving business. Or only if I buy this book, I will know everything I need. And what happened? I was buying the course, starting it, stopping midway, didn't implement most of it, and obviously nothing changed. And I realized, along the way that it's not about, obviously I learn all the time, but I don't need more courses because I already have a lot of knowledge that I can actually monetize on. And that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. So if I were doing it all again, probably what I would do is to start as a side hustle, a side gig. Because even when you're an employee, you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of information that other people will be willing to pay for. So if I would do it again, I would probably start with what I already know. And I advise you to start with what you know. You don't need any kind of certification. You don't need any courses. You already have skills and experience right now that someone would be paying for. So step one, start with what you already know. And you can mentor, coach, consult, based on what you already know. The second one, I recommend you to is keep the job you already have while you build something on the side. So for example, if you think about coaching, consulting, speaking, building a product, whatever it be, start it on the side. Don't quit your job yet. Because the thing is, when you work, your paycheck gives you a safety to experiment without the pressure. Because there's a lot of pressure when you start a business. Believe me, there's a lot of pressure of getting paid, making money, right? Supporting your family. And when you have a paycheck, that pressure is less relevant or irrelevant, depending how much you make. And you can be more relaxed into developing something else. Otherwise, what can happen is that you will feel all the time the pressure to make money immediately. And that pressure can lead into panic, into buying courses and never actually doing anything. And to be honest, it happened to me as well. Like, it comes and goes, and still I won't say that I don't have those moments where I think, what am I doing? In order to keep the pressure off, keep your job. The other thing that I want to recommend you, number 3, is stop learning as a prerequisite and start learning on the go. And as I said, when I did a coaching training, right? It was a 6-month training, very intense. And then 6 months I coached, I had to do 100 hours in order to get my certification. And I remember that some of the people who were my classmates in the coaching course, immediately after the course ended, went through another certification. Like, for example, coaching for relationships or, whatever it was. And I said no. I said to myself, I'm not going to do another course. I'm not going to do another certification. I'm not going to do another training before I start making money and getting paid as a coach. And I believe that learning and earning have to work interchangeably, not sequentially. Because we learn all the time, and I learn every single day. And the best way to learn something is start doing. The next thing I want to share with you is to be open to opportunities you didn't plan for. As I shared, when I started my business, I didn't really have a clue what I was going to do. I didn't even think about it in terms I'm going to coach. It kind of happens along the way. And you know what happened? Other things happened. I started learning, and, speaking at conferences was something that was important for my own professional development. So I started speaking at conferences. And what happened from that? I was offered to do paid speaking. So I started, being paid for speaking, for workshop, for trainings. I haven't planned for that, but it kind of happened. Obviously, there's a trap here that you can go to too many directions, and then you really have to decide what is important to you right now and where do you want to focus. And I know I mainly want to focus on my coaching business and on my speaking business. I'm excited about evolving and about the opportunities that may come out of it. And those women give themselves permission instead of waiting for someone else to tell them they're ready. So don't wait to be ready. Start right away. If I were doing it all over again, I would have started coaching while I was still employed. I would have started building connections and testing my ideas on the side with the safety net of a paycheck instead of jumping into the deep end and figuring out, wow, sometimes feeling like I'm drowning. And if you're sitting in a full-time job right now and you have an idea, a skill, or something that you've been thinking about building, you don't have to quit to start. You don't need another course. You don't need permission. Start it this week on the side while you still have the safety and see where it takes you. So stop waiting. Start doing. And if you haven't listened to my conversation with Virginia Frischkorn, go back to this week's episode because her story is different than mine. And that's exactly why I think hearing both sides will help you figure out on your own path. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. I hope it was valuable for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform and share it with any woman who needs to hear it. And I'll see you next week. Bye.